It's not the talent that's my gift. It's the voice that's my gift. So what am I going to do with that gift? I don't need to use it to sing, but I can use it to do something else. And then when I self-realized that I had all these amazing genius zones that I could do with ease and grace, when I could merge that together and overlay my natural state of being, my gifts, my talents, my value system, what I stood for, I was able to solve a problem. And I think that when I got to that point, then I was ready to let go of one of my mentors, which was the philosopher, because I then could see the trajectory of my life. I knew that coaching was where I was going to be, because that was my strength, that was my love. And and working one-on-one with humans is where my genius zone is. That's what I thrive.
This is Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, with Whitney Ann Jenkins. Hello and welcome to the 43rd episode of Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, where I bring on guests and we talk about the inner authentic voice and the challenges and the rewards that come from following it. This week I have with me Mary Henderson. Mary is an internationally recognized personal branding and online business specialist. Mary helps service industry experts systemise, digitalise, and commercialise their knowledge, wisdom, and skills into a scalable and profitable online business and a brand so that they become an authority in their niche or industry. Mary has 20 plus years of experience building 7- and 8-figure businesses and building high-performance sales teams in the IT sector, and 15 years delivering online solutions for large and small businesses. She has been featured in many publications and is regarded as a thought leader in the digital sector. Mary embraces technology and social media in a big way, and her followers are growing daily. Mary is a heart-centered, compassionate, and tenacious entrepreneur who thrives on human transformation and witnessing people fulfill their dreams. I had an incredible time talking with Mary. We just clicked right away. We had a really authentic synergy right away, and it continued throughout our conversation. And she is so passionate and shares so much wisdom about following your inner authentic voice and your intuition, especially when it comes to building your brand and your identity within the business world. And so I am really excited to share this conversation with you. Here is Mary Henderson.
Whitney,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you also.
Wherever you are, it looks very warm.
And how about you?
I'm in Melbourne, in Australia.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've not.
exactly. Actually, our time zone difference between the East Coast in the US and Australia East Coast is actually perfect. So
Yeah, I remember having meetings in California and the time was always a little rough. So,
Pacific
yeah.
time's the worst, but Eastern is just like the best. And I've got quite a lot of clients, 80% of my clients in the US. And it's really funny because, the ones that are from Pacific, they're like, oh my God, this is killing me. The ones from Eastern, they're like, oh my God, this is perfect for me. So anyway, you can't have it all. But anyway,
Right.
anyway, it's really nice to meet you though. Thank you for
You
having me.
too. Yeah, thanks so much for making the time to come on.
You just hit me with anything you like and I'll answer it. So I love the organic approach. I think it's so much more, it's more deep.
Yeah. Okay. So you have quite an impressive background. And
Yes.
so I'm really excited to dive in deep and see how you ended up where you are. Because in order to get to where you are, you had to go through a lot of things. And so one of the first things that I like to ask my guests is, when is the first time that you realized that you had an inner voice of your own and it wasn't influenced by your environment or your family or school or the way that you were brought up, but it was purely you speaking to yourself and you could identify that?
Well, I have a very interesting story about that. And for me, that moment in time, which I'll never forget, was actually 3 hours after my second son was born. And, at the day that I gave birth to him, the 12 months prior to that were the most stressful time of my entire life. So in that moment, 3 hours after I gave birth, I reach out to the side of my bed to get a lip balm out of my purse. And this all happened almost like in real slow motion. So I grabbed my purse, I unzip it, I grabbed the lip balm, and my business card fell out. And it was in that moment that I picked up that business card, again, slow motion, and I thought, my whole life has been a series of labels. And worse than that, this business card and the title on it is actually defining who I am. This is my validation of who I am in the world. And then I thought, but so is all the labels that I'm carrying, all these false narratives that I'm carrying with me have actually become my reality. And this is me on a bed with a baby in my arm, looking at this business card, thinking, I got to get out of here. I've just got to get out of this head. I've got to get out of this body. I've got to get out of this reality that I've created. And I owned my own software company at that time, which I had for 7 years. And Whitney, I knew the day that I left, that I knew in that moment that I would resign from my own company. I just knew. I knew that that was not my purpose. I knew that what I had created was a narrative and a job to get the validation from my parents. All I wanted my parents to say to me as an adult, and I didn't even realize this until that moment, was, Mary, we're so proud of you, even though you didn't finish your degree. How screwed up is that? But it was the truth. That was the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So when I left that hospital bed, I knew that I had to change my life. And, and I did. I actually did resign from my own company. And that was about October 2011, and January 2012, I took a 12-month sabbatical. And that's where that change started. The unpeeling of the onion layers started to fall off, or at least I started to understand, who I am, what I've created, what my, all these false realities, these narratives that I had been carrying that were never mine to begin with. They started to break down, which was just a blessing in disguise.
Wow. Okay. So you quit from your own company that you created yourself, and then you went on a journey of self-discovery, it seems.
And it was so deep and so wide, Whitney. I can't even describe the process of elimination. It's the only way I can describe it, because when you decide to truly go on a journey of self-discovery, you have to give up. You have to be prepared to give up a lot of things: friends, social groups, the narrative. I even gave up credit cards. I mean, I gave up as much as I could that didn't represent me. And I couldn't do the eat, pray, love thing because I had two children, but I knew I could turn my attitude and my home into like an ashram type of a scenario where I could create a sacred space. I could say no to the outside world. And that was my choice. So if I wanted to maintain a narrative and I wanted to catch up for coffee with all those friends that were all competing and talking about the same thing disguised differently, I could do that. I had a choice to say no to that. I had a choice to say no to the friends that were in my life that weren't really my friends. They were just my friends because of a larger social circle. I also could say no to a job that I actually bought, which was my business and my company, and it had an infrastructure. We turned over 7 figures per year. I also could have said no to that, which I did. So the journey is really, really hard because you actually have to confront the truth. That's the first step. And then once you've confronted the truth, then you have choice. Do I want this? Don't I want this? Do I want to be a part of this? Don't I want to be? So once you've identified that, then the journey gets a little bit easier. But I didn't do it on my own. And this is the key thing. I decided that I needed mentors who are way more experienced than me, who had a lot of wisdom that I can draw from. I didn't want self-help. I didn't want, I didn't want that community. I wanted somebody that was, I wanted an academic. I don't know why I said that. I just wanted somebody that could break it down academically first before I could experience it in my body and my soul. So the mentor that I chose was a professor in philosophy from Oxford University, and it was the greatest gift that I gave myself. But I had another mentor who was an expert in the emotional body. So both of these mentors really helped me unpeel the layers that were no longer serving me, and I knew that. So but when the way that they did it was never going to be the way that I would have done it. It might have been over 20-30 years, but when you're drawing from wisdom, it's a whole different experience. So the deep dive was very, very deep. It's very, very uncomfortable. And in the words of my mentor, he said, Mary, the journey you're about to embark on is not Girl Scouts. It's pretty intense. Are you ready for it? I said, I'm ready. And he was right.
Okay. So in finding these mentors, is there a story leading up to that, or was it more of a when the student is ready, the teacher appears sort of scenario?
No, I actually went searching for them. This was a conscious decision that I didn't know that I was going to get a professor in philosophy. How that happened, and this is interesting in itself, is that the first day on that sabbatical that I went on, the 12 months, I walked to my computer and I literally Googled, how do I change my life? That was what I Googled. So I Googled that and all these search results came. There was a TEDx talk. I clicked on that and it was all around love. And I watched this video or this TED talk, and I was like, that's the guy, that's him, that's the mentor I've been looking for, because Mark was an academic, in philosophy, an expert in religion sciences, really drew from ancient wisdom, whether it was the Kabbalistic philosophy, but there was a lot of stuff that I knew he could bring to the table and help me unpack. And also, I was always that child, that had that connection with the spiritual world. Like I was always that person. So I was naturally drawn to somebody like that who could actually say to me, you're not crazy. Like whatever you were feeling and whatever you were, whatever what was going on at the age of 10, it's okay. It's normal. Like, it's real, and I needed that. I felt I needed somebody to say there's nothing wrong with you. So that's how I found Mark. And then even just getting him to be my mentor, that was another journey in itself. And so I reached out to his office, and his EA, she said, I'm sorry, but Mark's not taking on any more students. Like that's just ain't going to happen. And I said, oh, no, you don't understand. It actually has to happen. Like I really need him to mentor me. She said, but I just I can't fit you in. I said, and I emailed back to her and I said, I will send you a video recording every single day until he says yes. And I did. It's exactly what I did. And in the end, she emailed me back and she's like, okay, you win. He wants to meet with you. And, on this day, this time. And if you guys, connect and click, then he'll take it from there. I said, perfect. So, we did, we met, we clicked, and then it all just happened. And the other mentor that I had, I Googled my brains out, to find this guy. Again, I was looking for something very specific, Whitney. I knew, I read Dr. Candace Pert's book, Molecules of Emotion. And it was that book that made me realize, oh God, I've got some serious issues at a cellular level. I need to fix that. I need to figure out, how do I get to the cell to release the emotions? And Peter helped me do that, like just beautifully. So that's the story behind that.
Wow, yeah, it seems like you're very in tune with what you needed, and so you went on a search for it. And it also seems like you have this scientific part of you that needs some sort of justification as well with your background.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yeah. Hmm.
Well, I'm just a very mathematical person. I've always thought I'm a systems person. So, having a software company was just natural to me because I knew how to speak that language. I could design frameworks. I can design algorithms. I don't build them, but I think like that. So having somebody that could just validate and break it down scientifically was it was confirmation to what I've always thought, in the non-physical, in my subjective mind. I always knew everything that he was saying, or I always felt, or I always had an idea about that, but it was never validated. And
Yeah.
self-help wasn't enough for me, Whitney. I didn't want self-help. I didn't want to be told, you can do it, you're amazing. I already knew all of that. I've read that many self-help books, and even though they told me a million times how awesome I was, I didn't feel it. So
Yeah, unless you can integrate it into your life in a way that you understand it, then it's just a bunch of words.
totally. I totally agree with you. So this was a little bit more deeper because I think that I love the idea of, merging the linear and the non-linear together. And I love how they can meet halfway, and it suffices, the ego, it suffices your physical, but it also suffices, the non-physical version of you. And I love that idea. I love the merging, the clashing of those two worlds. It's just, it brings a sense of satisfaction to me, because it's like, it's not like I told you so, but it's like when you feel it and you can validate it and then experience it, that's a whole new level.
Yeah. And so you studied with these two mentors for a year.
Yes, 1 year.
1 year. Was there a moment when you knew that your time with them was wrapping up and you felt that you were ready to move on?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think with Mark, the philosopher, he took me on an amazing expedition. It's the only way I can describe it. And there was a lot of unpacking, there was a lot of writing, there was a lot of self-discovery, if you will. And it was through that 12-month period that he also made me see for myself. I self-realized. He gave me the tools. He never told me what to do, what to think, how to think. It was the process of self-realization, which was so magical. It was through the process with him that I actually realized, hang on a minute, I've always been in the wrong vocation. What I'm capable of doing with ease and grace is actually a solution to a problem. And I self-realized that through that process. In saying that, I also realized, and I could see for myself, Whitney, that everything is divinely orchestrated. Whether we believe it or not, it 100% is, for me anyway. And what happened is that I was able to look back, as Steve Jobs says, you connect the dots back to front, not front to back. It was so real for me. That was so real, such reality for me, because all of the experiences that I had accumulated professionally and personally, especially professionally, all those trials and tribulations, when I got to that point where I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, oh my God, like I had to do that. I had to go there. I had to experience it. I had to. And I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable, because all those things that I hated, I also mastered at the same time. And when I was able to look at it through that lens, even my gift was my voice. I mean, my voice is professionally trained from the age of 5. So all I ever wanted to do was go to the College of Performing Arts. I wasn't interested in doing anything else in my life except that. But I wasn't allowed to pursue that as a career or as a vocation. But what I realized through that process with Mark is it's not the talent that's my gift, it's the voice that's my gift. So what am I going to do with that gift? I don't need to use it to sing, but I can use it to do something else. And then when I self-realized that I had all these amazing genius zones that I could do with ease and grace, when I could merge that together and overlay my natural state of being, my gifts, my talents, my value system, what I stood for, I was able to solve a problem. And I think that when I got to that point, then I was ready to let go of one of my mentors, which was the philosopher, because I then could see the trajectory of my life. I knew
Mhm.
coaching was where I was going to be, because that was my strength, that was my love. And and working one-on-one with humans is where my genius zone is. That's what I thrive. And so I pursued that. And then Peter, who was my mentor for the emotional body, we actually worked together for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you put all of the puzzle pieces of yourself together and found alignment in everything that you experienced up until that point.
Absolutely. And I think that's very important to actually talk about that, because, I think too often we make choices in our life based on the status quo. We make choices based on our life, what our parents want us to do. So we're living in other people's shadows and not in our own light. And we have to really, truly unpack that. I'm so passionate about that.
Mhm.
Um, I've got 2 boys, and it's the same with them. I would never, I don't project my shadow onto them, and I'm conscious of it, because they've got their own dreams, they've got their own talents, they've got their own purpose, their soul, their soul has been assigned to whatever they need to do. I pull that out of them and make sure that they pursue a path that it makes them happy, and it's magical, and they're constantly alive in that space. So when we're not, living in our natural state of being, what happens is that we just immediately shut down, and we are projecting other people's stuff and living this false life, rather than living this light full of um, you know um, curiosity and imagination, and the ability to create just purely based on the inventory that lives inside of us. So the other thing that I discovered through this whole process, Whitney, and I think it's important to just mention, is that I also realized through the learnings and the experiences, holy moly, purpose is not out there. Purpose is in
Mm.
here. When I was able to look at my internal inventory as currency, I thought, oh my God, this is my purpose. This is the gift that God's giving me. I need to figure out what I'm going to do with it. And that's very important, because if we don't show up every day in our natural state of being, that's when we get dis-ease, discomfort, frustrated, stuck. We get lost, midlife crisis, all these terminologies start to appear, and these experiences that we embody that are not really our experiences anyway, we start to become somebody that we're not. And I think that we need to stop and question everything in our life, all of the learnings, the downloads, the blueprints, the status quo. Once we can challenge that, then we start walking into the light.
Yeah. In that process, was there a point where you had to almost grieve those past versions of yourself that were not you?
Oh my God, that was, yes, because and it's a process of elimination, isn't it? Really, it's giving up your friendships, it's giving up the narratives. I mean, Whitney, I gave up credit cards, and I mean, I gave up my American Express Platinum, which for some reason I thought was defining me. I mean, what is that? But till this day, I have no credit cards. But it was, I know it sounds, egotistical, but just giving up those things, those material things, that was huge. Giving up my social circle, that
Mhm.
I went through a whole grieving process because of that, because suddenly I was on my own. Suddenly I wasn't with a clique. Suddenly, it was like, oh my God, where do I go? Who do I hang out with? um, and so and also not only that, but also grieving, the my upbringing, the mother that I wanted to have but I never had, because my mother wasn't emotionally available. She didn't have that capacity, not because she didn't want to, but because she didn't know how to. So even giving up those paradigms that my mother was comfortable with, even, giving that up made her very uncomfortable. But I had to stay in that space of my integrity, because I didn't want to go back to being the manipulated little girl that she that was her comfort zone. So when I pulled my power back and I started to own that power, and this was the work that I was doing with my other mentor with the emotional body, that was really cathartic, but it took a long time. It didn't take, as I said before, one self-help book. So there was a lot of grieving, but it wasn't just, grieving. It was rebuilding. It was like I had to rebuild my whole reality. My whole life had to be rebuilt from ground up. And so I think that was the hardest part. The giving up, I was okay to give up because I could see it wasn't serving me anyway, but it was the rebuilding.
Did you have a certain way that you implemented those boundaries so that you were able to maintain that alignment with yourself?
I did a lot of journaling. That was the starting point. I did a lot of journaling, a lot. Like that became the thing that I found a lot of where I could self-express without judgment. I felt that that was a place that was like my sacred space. I could say everything I wanted in words, and I could also connect with some higher intelligence and also ask to be shown, show me the way, show me what I'm not seeing, show me where I need to go. So it was like this two-way communication. Until this day, I still journal. So that was the one thing that was very important to me. But also, when you're going through that process of elimination, especially all the emotional stuff, we have to also, I had to learn how to give those emotions that were pulling me back an entire new meaning. So, breathing exercises, being still, actually experiencing those non-beneficial emotions was actually the key to releasing them out of me. So, as uncomfortable as it is, you've got to sit with that. And I learned all those things in that time period, which is my normal today.
Yeah, because if we hold on to those emotions, then they stay stagnant and they don't move through us, and then they get stuck. And then it's a really
Yes.
interesting cycle.
It is a very interesting cycle, and it can be a very destructive cycle. So, I always like to feel it. Even today, if something doesn't feel comfortable, I'm like, I've got to feel this. I've got to feel this emotion. I'm going to step into it and I'm going to just start to unpack it. And, it's amazing when you do that, because when you start to unpack that emotion that's really, really irritating you, or it's non-beneficial, you actually resolve it. Okay, on the body side, but you actually can see where its origin is from as well. So it's a much bigger process than just sitting on your bed and going, okay, I'm going to feel anger. It's like, it just opens you up. So I've never stopped doing it, purely because of the benefit of it.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of us being human too and having this experience on this planet.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Do you remember, is there a moment where you felt that you stepped into your true self and you felt that alignment specifically?
Absolutely. I think that when I finished my mentoring with Mark, I also realized that, oh my God, I can solve a problem in the world, and I don't want to start another company and have 20 people working for me. I don't want to do that. That's not my strength. I couldn't think of anything worse. I want to create an environment where I can actually help people, solve problems. That's one of my strengths. So after I finished working with him, I spent 3 years creating my system and my frameworks. Of course, coming from a software background, I also designed an entire algorithm for one of the programs that we use in our coaching today. But it took 3 years to actually carefully consider what I wanted to bring to the world, how I was going to show up. What was the solution going to be like? How was I going to be different? It took a long time. It didn't just take, again, a lot of coaches, they go to a mastermind for 7 days and then suddenly they're a life coach. For me, it was never going to be like that. For me, it was like, I don't care about all of that. All I care about is what I already have inside of me, and it's all the inventory I'm going to work with. So that's going to be my foundation. So it took 3 years to actually design what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And, and that was back in 2015 when I launched my coaching business, and I'm still here today, going stronger than ever.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't think 3 years is a terribly long time to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life. I think that's perfectly acceptable.
I agree. I actually agree with you. And I think that, and also and I think one of the things that I realized in that 3 years as well, Whitney, is, you know, I wanted to make sure that I was just really involved in that process. I wanted to make sure that I unpacked every detail. I wanted to show up every day and make sure that the end product was 100% me. It wasn't a little bit of this person, a little bit of this, a little bit of that book, a little bit of that webinar. It was 100% me. And that was very important. So you're absolutely right. And 3 years is not a long time when it actually impacts the rest of your life and other people as well.
Yeah, and to step into that authenticity and that voice that you were trying to share since you were a child. I think that's quite an accomplishment. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So, a lot of the coaching you do, I think, has to do with personal branding.
Mhm.
And would you like to talk about your philosophy behind that and where
Oh my
you,
God, yes,
yeah.
absolutely. So, um, because my version of personal branding has nothing to do with the superficial aspect of it, and I think that we've got to really, look at it through completely different eyes. For me, personal branding is you, the business. So what I'm looking at when I'm working with people is, again, their internal inventory only. I don't care about who you aspire to be like, who you want to be like, whose program you want to mirror. None of that matters to me. What I'm interested in is understanding your story. I'm interested in understanding your professional, your personal skills, all the attributes that make up who you are in your natural state of being. Because once I have that inventory, then we can create an entire brand around that and a solution around that. When you have a solution that can solve a problem genuinely, then you're going to show up genuinely. You can speak to that solution with absolute conviction and passion. And authentically, you can be unapologetically yourself, because when you're delivering the explanation of what it is that you do, whether it be on social media, in a keynote, on a podcast interview, you're not looking at your notes. You're not carefully considering the words that you're choosing just in case you get caught out. What you're doing is it all comes from the heart. And when you can speak from the heart with conviction, you are believable and trustable. And that has to come back down to, what is it that you can do for sure? For sure, 100% all you. So when I look at that inventory, then the personal branding is wrapped around that. The branding architecture is wrapped around that. The tone, the voice, the persona, the messaging, the language, all of that fits around what it is that you can do for sure. And that thing that you can do for sure then turns into your solution, into a system, into a methodology, into the signature program. That's it. There's nothing else that needs to be done once you've recognized that. So the branding overlays all of that, but also it's congruent with that. If there's no interlinking with how you show up as a brand in the world and what problem you can solve in the world, if those two things don't interlink and they're not congruent, there's a massive disconnect. And that's where people start to, get frustrated. They get stuck. They're not quite certain they're in the right place. It's not working for me, all of that stuff. When I'm working with clients, every single one of my clients that finishes their journey with me, they're all monetizing. Why? Because they're actually doing what they're meant to be doing, based on what they already possess. They're not looking for it. They already possess it. They're authentically themselves.
Yeah, taking the value of the wisdom of your own life experience.
Correct.
Awesome.
Exactly. And professionally and personally, Whitney, it's both. It's not just one. It both play a significant role.
So, how does that come across in the branding of combining the personal and the professional.
The personal and the professional is where the wisdom and the inventory live. So you've got lots of skills and abilities in the professional and in the personal. So in the personal, I would be asking people, well, what are your hobbies? What are you really good at? Somebody might say, I'm amazing at baking cakes. Like I can make, store-bought quality cakes that are just next level. Okay, let me break that down. What skill set are you learning in that? What are you bringing to the table? What is the detail that is a part of you? Because if you can do that, that's natural to you. But those skills in baking that cake also can benefit you over here in the solution that you're wanting to bring into the world. So I'm looking at all of the attributes and abilities based on professional experience and their personal life experience, and there's the clashing of the both. So where my genius zone is, I can organize information really well and turn that into a solution.
Okay, so it sounds like you're also incorporating the scientific and the intuitive sides of yourself into what you're doing, which is how you seemed to come to what you're doing in the first place. So you're being genuine in that, yeah.
100%. That's absolutely spot on. It really is a mirror of that philosophy that I learned that changed my life. That it's exactly the philosophy that I've applied here. And it's the best way to bring out the best in people, because I'm not searching for anything outside of them. And I can't tell you how comforting and satisfying that is.
And by taking on this role, how has your life changed since moving on from having your software company to now, and how has it transformed?
Completely. I mean, it's a 360-degree turnaround. I have a dedicated room at home to start with, which is my home office. I have a team of people that are all over the world. They're not just, they don't come to work every day, clock in and clock out. It's completely model based on freedom, and that's and empowerment. That's absolutely what I stand for. It's also changed the type of people, I work with. I work with the people I always wanted to work with, which is really, really wonderful. I mean, it's such a blessing to be able to say that. That my clients, they're all industry experts in some capacity, and to be able to work with people who bring thousands of hours of knowledge, wisdom, and skill set, into on the table, that for me is a playground, because I can do things with that. Um, it's changed my relationship with myself dramatically. Obviously, I've become the mother that I always wanted to have, so my kids benefit from that. Um, I'm a critical thinker, and I think out of all of this, I can see the truth and I can see the facade, and I think that when you can see life through that lens, you're always asking questions. You're not accepting what you see is what you're going to get. One of the other things that I gave up in 2012 was the TV. We have no TV in our house. So that's 10 years. I have not watched the TV. I have no idea what goes on the news. I have no idea who's famous. I don't know any of that. So, and I didn't, and that was a conscious decision, but my children, they don't watch TV either. They're not drawn to the TV. None of us are. If I want knowledge and wisdom, I'll buy a book and I'll read that book and I'll, fill my mind with ideas, and because I want to expand myself. So I think out of all of that, the best outcome for me was to be a critical thinker. And what you realize when you're a critical thinker is that there's not very many of you. So it's very lonely.
Isn't that the truth? Yes.
Yes, exactly.
I don't have a TV either, by the way.
That's why we're a match made in heaven, Whitney.
I think so. So if someone would like to work with you, what would that look like?
So most people that work with me, I've got two ways to work with me. Either you can join my group coaching, which is a boot camp, or work with me one-on-one. Both of them are 6 months time frames. I coach every week. So it's very hands-on. It's either a done with you or a done for you. I don't believe in a do it yourself. So it's very, I'm very hands-on. And I believe in that concept. I don't believe in, people, raising a support ticket, to get in touch with me. I want people to be able to reach me, because my goal for my clients is to get them to their destination in the shortest time possible. So, so it's a 6-month journey with me, whether it's done with you or done for you. It's all, my program is very much based on, you start here, you're going to end here. It's all supported with frameworks so that heavy lifting's being done. My job is to facilitate and make sure that I, get that person closer to their goal every day.
Wow. So I want to compare what you're doing and holding a container with these systems, sort of like with the philosophy of divine feminine and divine masculine, is you're holding that space so that your clients can flow and flourish and grow, it seems like.
I think it's very important to do that. And I think that that's that's the one thing that I consciously wanted to ensure that every person that works with me knows that they're allowed to do that. They're allowed to, reach out to me. They're allowed to, ask any question. No question is dumb. Every question is perfect, and I also bring in that philosophy of exactly what you're saying, that the feminine and the masculine, because there always has to be a balance. And so it's like I give everyone permission to be unapologetically, you ask what you want, reach out when you need me. I'm 100% here no matter what. And that's the philosophy I bring to the table. And I think that we're humans, so we should act human. And that's how, in my view, how humans should act.
That's beautiful because you have like a system set up, but you're present also.
Yes.
There's so much duality in everything that you're saying, and you're combining and merging them all. So that's really beautiful to me.
Thank you, Whitney. Thank you.
Yeah. So I have one last question that I ask my guests before we wrap up, and that is, if your inner voice had a billboard, what would it say to the world?
Well, my core values are truth and freedom. I stand for that no matter what, and I fight for that. I think that I would actually say fight for freedom. I absolutely passionately believe in that. And I think that it's more relevant today than ever before, I think. So that's probably what my billboard would say.
Excellent. I agree with you. Interesting times for sure. In Australia too, I hear.
Exactly. I think my facial expression says it all.
Yeah. So if people would like to come and find you on the interwebs or anywhere to reach
Yes.
you, if they want to send you a video until you respond to them, um, where can we send them?
Please, you can email me, mary@maryhendersoncoaching.com. You can go to my website, maryhendersoncoaching.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, which is Mary Henderson Coaching with a pink circle around my face. Connect with me on Facebook, Mary Henderson Coaching, and the same on Instagram, Mary Henderson Coaching.
All right, all right. Okay, I'll add all of those links into the show notes so people can click on them very easily. So thank you so much for joining me. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you, Whitney. It was a pleasure meeting you too.
Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you're listening and you like what you hear, please consider subscribing and rating this podcast, as it really helps get this podcast out to other people who might be interested in hearing it but don't know about it yet. And also, if you'd like to contact me or reach me, you can reach me at unconditioningpodcast@gmail.com or unconditioningpodcast on Instagram. Thank you so much. And until next time, stay tuned in to you.